Arne Slot had the unenviable task of replacing Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Klopp had become a Liverpool legend, revitalising a club that had been in the doldrums to lead them to their first league title in 30 years, as well as a 6th European Cup and an assortment of other trophies. The German left big shoes to fill. What's more, Slot would have little opportunity to shape the team in his image, with an unfit Federico Chiesa their only signing, as well as the unwelcome distraction of several major contract renewals being negotiated during the season. The scene was essentially set for Slot's failure, yet he was already a Premier League champion by the end of April in his first season in charge. Things could hardly have gone better. With the benefit of hindsight, we can see that maybe the situation wasn't quite as difficult for Slot as was made out. Klopp may have left high expectations for Slot, but he also left him a pretty good squad. Following a miserable 2022-23 season, Klopp oversaw a rebuild in midfield, with 5 leaving and 4 joining. While Slot may not have had any choice over who was signed, he did get to benefit not just from the quality players chosen, but also from those players having a year of playing together. The only player he had to worry about integrating was Chiesa, who spent most of the season just trying to get fit after missing pre-season with Juventus. Had he taken over a year prior, he would have had a lot more work to do. The way Slot managed the handover was also intelligent though. Rather than making sweeping changes, he has instead made smaller tweaks, although this is likely once again helped by the fact that sweeping changes weren't really necessary. For example, much of a perceived difference between Slot and Klopp's approach is that the Dutchman prefers Liverpool to have more control in the build-up, whereas his predecessor was more chaotic, preferring a heavy metal style. This hadn't really been true for several years though. Over the course of his tenure, Klopp moved further and further away from his high-octane style to a more possession-heavy one. This meant that Slot could come into Liverpool and introduce changes, but wasn't having to teach his players a completely new way of playing.
And the good thing was that I was selected because playing styles were quite similar between me and Jurgen, so I didn't have to change a lot. We could just build from what's already been done here for so many years.
It was in the build-up where these changes were most noticeable. Rather than stretching out across the pitch, Liverpool's fullbacks would tuck into the middle. Slot has stated this approach is so that his team moves the ball around faster.
The idea of the fullbacks not being that wide, and it depends also about the press that the other teams will give us. But if the fullbacks are all down the line and you play the fullback, then he's very far away from some other players. And it takes really long to get the ball over there. So if you are playing closer to each other, then the ball goes faster from one foot to another, and that gives less time to the opponent to defend.
With the fullbacks joining the 2 midfielders in the centre, Liverpool have plenty of players in this area to quickly progress the ball. These narrow positions also mean that should Liverpool lose the ball, the fullbacks are in better positions to defend against counter-attacks, not having so much ground to cover.
If we lose it, he's not out wide, but he is on the inside, so it prepares us better for the counter-attack.
There are downsides to this approach though. Putting the players closer together means the ball doesn't have to travel as far to reach a teammate, but it also means that an opponent doesn't either. If Liverpool have their fullbacks pull out to the touchlines, then that forces the opposition to cover the full width of the pitch to combat them. By allowing the opposition to congest this central zone rather than stretching them, Liverpool are obviously leaving less space in this area for the 4 players in it, making it harder for them to play through. Andy Robertson seems to find it particularly difficult. The Scot is very left-footed, using it even when the situation really asks for him to use his right, so he can struggle when the opposition deny him space and force him inside, making it likelier that he will give the ball away. Trent Alexander-Arnold fares better. Originally a midfielder before breaking through into the first team, Klopp used him in this role last year, having him tuck inside into the midfield, a position Alexander-Arnold believes is his best.
For me, I've always believed that the ability and the skill set that I've got is best suited to play in the middle of the pitch, and you get the best out of my specific skill set by playing in the middle of the pitch.
This makes sense. Alexander-Arnold is one of the greatest passers of his generation. I could probably make a full-length video from this season alone of passes that few players could only dream of pulling off. A wide position limits his options for these passes. He can either play the ball down the line, or he can play it inside. From a central position, he can play passes in whatever direction he wants, across to the left, down the right, worked through the middle, slipped in behind, over the top. The world's his oyster. Wanting to give a player with Alexander-Arnold's talent as many options as possible is only logical. Not only that, but it also puts him in positions to shoot at goal, adding a goal threat that realistically doesn't exist when he's stuck out on the touchline. And yet last season, Klopp would regularly start matches with Alexander-Arnold tucking inside, only for him to inevitably be shifted back out wide again for the second half. Why would he want to limit Alexander-Arnold in this way? While it's true that a central position provides more passing options, it's also true that there is generally less space to receive the ball. Playing him as central so typically means the player receives the ball with their back to play, requiring them to turn a full 180 degrees to play forward, whereas out wide they mostly receive it on the half turn, enabling them to both see what's in front of them and play the ball forward quicker. Playing him as centre gave Alexander-Arnold more passing options, but playing out wide made it far likelier that he would actually be able to pull off those more limited options. So in Robertson, Slot had a player not particularly suited to tucking into midfield, and in Alexander-Arnold he had a player suited to it but perhaps better suited to playing out wide. Rather than insisting that his fullbacks must tuck inside, the Dutchman instead showed a willingness to adapt, with Liverpool using all sorts of different build-up structures. Sometimes they would have the fullbacks tuck in, leaving just the centre-backs in the last line. More frequently though, Robertson would remain back in line with the centre-backs, forming a makeshift back three. A withdrawn position gives him more space to receive the ball facing forward, so he's not under quite as much pressure as in midfield. This allows him to either pick out a pass with his left foot, Robertson's capable of picking out some great balls forward, or to push forward into midfield. His back three shape also allows Ibrahima Konate to position himself slightly wider on the opposite side, giving him a bit more space to pick out passes, or push forward on the ball as well. The structure in front of that backline can vary massively as well. They might have two midfielders in front of the defenders, or they may just have one. They might have one midfielder joined by Alexander-Arnold coming central, they might have one midfielder with Alexander-Arnold wide, they might have two midfielders with Alexander-Arnold wide. In many games, Slot has even ditched that narrow structure he prefers in favour of having the fullback spread out across the pitch. The Dutchman is clearly not dogmatic, adapting the build-up to best outmanoeuvre the opposition. The role of Alexander-Arnold is particularly interesting, as Slot has given Scouser a lot of positional freedom in order to get the most from him.
I think Trent has many qualities. One of them is his crosses from the side. So if we only play him in the midfield, then he can only pass the ball, which he can do quite well as well. But I also want him in dangerous positions in and around the goal and in crossing positions. So he has a lot of freedom to position himself, and the rest has to react on it. And it also depends on how the opposition lines up and where we can get the best out of him.
If Alexander-Arnold is allowed to roam, then he can get on the ball more, and the more he gets on the ball, the more he can use his fantastic passing. There is another reason why Slot hasn't moved Alexander-Arnold in field though.
A lot of teams are playing the fullbacks in these positions, especially out of an in possession. What's been your thought process?
Can you stop? My thought process is that these two are incredible in these positions. So I rate them higher in these positions than Trent. Trent is good in this position, but I rate them higher. And Trent is the best player in the world when he's down the line.
Why bother moving Alexander-Arnold into midfield when he's got two more than capable ones there already? Ryan Gravenberch featured little in his debut season under Klopp, yet has been a mainstay since his compatriot's arrival, and it's clear to see why. If Slot wants Liverpool to build up through the middle yet also congest this area, then the midfielders have to be extremely good in tight spaces, and there are a few better than Gravenberch. The Dutchman needs very little space to turn out under pressure, twisting as he receives the ball to face forward and advance. You wouldn't expect such a tall player to have such excellent close control, and it's not as if he's even using his frame to his advantage, putting his body between his opponent and the ball and using his long legs to keep it out of reach. Instead, Gravenberch will happily turn so that he's directly facing opponents, leaving the ball unprotected even as his opponent closes in. He does sometimes use his opponent's momentum to his advantage, moving towards the ball to draw them in before letting it roll across him as he spins away, or taking a touch in a different direction to where his opponent is heading. But for the most part he succeeds just by keeping the ball close to his feet, with lots of little touches to keep it away from his opponent. It's only when he has a bit of space to run into that we see the advantages of his frame, taking bigger touches as he lengthens his stride to push forward into the final third. His passing when he gets into the final third could do with some work though. Often he seems to do the hard bit with ease, skipping away from opponents, only to then aim his pass too far ahead of his teammates. His passes are generally much better when he's aiming them into feet, so this would suggest it's more a question of judgment than any technical issue. Alexis Mac Allister has arguably been even more impressive. The Argentinian is also capable of turning out under pressure, although he seems a little warier of his opponents, preferring to find little pockets of space if possible, and doing more to protect the ball, such as putting his body between it and his opponent. Despite this wariness, he can sometimes turn into trouble, usually when he turns to avoid one opponent only to run into another. His passing is fantastic. Neat to quickly progress the ball through the middle, but also with the range to cleanly fire longer passes out to the flanks, or to slide a through ball for an attacker running in behind. Having previously played as an attacking midfielder, Mac Allister is also comfortable pushing forward into the final third. When he's starting from deep, he frequently times his runs forward well to exploit gaps, but even when he's starting in his more advanced positions, he shows an ability to unlock the opposition defence with inventive passes, or to pose a goal threat with his shots. Defying his small stature, he can get his head on the end of crosses too. An alternative option in midfield is Curtis Jones. It's been a big year for the Scouser, playing a much larger role in the league win than he did in 2020, and earning his first England cap, as well as becoming a father off the pitch. Even if he remains heavily criticised by certain sections of the fan base, he seems to finally be achieving some wider recognition of what he does well. It's been a long road though. Originally a left winger in the reserves, Jones didn't have an obvious path into the first team as he wasn't the type of rapid direct winger running in behind Klopp likes. He wasn't an obvious candidate to be a Klopp midfielder either though. They were there to run hard and provide cover for the forwards and fullbacks to attack, and he was a skinny teenager who had been playing as an attacker, hardly the best education to be playing in midfield at the highest level. What he's always been very good at, and rarely seemed to get credit for, is keeping hold of the ball, protecting it using his close control, although one valid criticism was that he had a tendency to hold on to it for a little too long. With Slot's midfielders needing to progress the ball in tight spaces, Jones is a much better fit than he was under Klopp. He protects the ball really well to keep possession, but he can also turn out and push forward with it. His passing does tend to be a little sideways or backwards, however when he has the confidence to try more ambitious passes he does pull them off. He has that knack of predicting where a teammate will end up to accurately aim and wait through balls, getting Liverpool in behind the opposition. Importantly, he now releases the ball much faster than he used to as well. He will frequently take up positions to support the man in possession, offering him an easy pass to escape if a move breaks down. His tendency to drop behind the play can also be seen in the final third, allowing Jones to receive the ball facing forward rather than needing to turn, so he can get quick shots away. Often chosen as an alternative in the attacking midfield role as well though, Jones is comfortable receiving the ball with his back to play, finding little pockets of space to make passes into feet easier for his teammates, and he can then quickly turn and move the ball on, even if the opposition try to squeeze him out. While Jones is better off under Slot, Wataru Endo is not. The Japanese started just one league game all season, and that came after Liverpool had already won it. He's excellent defensively, showing a keen awareness of what's going on around him, and an ability to step in at just the right moment to steal the ball away from the opposition. This skill means Slot has often turned to him as a substitute to see out games, shoring up the midfield. The manager doesn't trust him to start though, and it's likely because he doesn't meet the standards of the other midfielders in possession. He doesn't possess that confidence to turn out under pressure, preferring to play backwards. His passing is solid if given space, but Liverpool aren't set up to give their midfielders space, so unfortunately Endo doesn't really fit. Even for those midfielders that deal with pressure well, they are still reliant on their supply though, meaning the defenders behind them have to be good passers of the ball. As his song states, Virgil van Dijk passes the ball, calm as you like. We regularly saw his ability to pick out long balls under Klopp, and this has continued under Slot, mainly sending it out to Mohamed Salah on the flank. We now get to see more of his shorter passing too though. He hits crisp passes into the feet of the midfielders, or waits them well for his teammates to run onto them, slipping them through tight gaps to reach their targets. He's also demonstrated an ability to disguise these passes, shaping his body as if to play one way, getting opponents to head in that direction, before cutting across himself to find a different teammate. He's clearly comfortable on the ball, his first touch nearly always out with his feet to set up his next move, however it remains rare to see him push forward on the ball. Although his ganglier frame can make him look more awkward, Ibrahima Konate is also very good in possession, capable of picking out both longer passes and shorter ones into midfield, as well as having the vision to slide the ball into attacking midfielders through the centre too. He also shows a willingness to push forward with the ball, taking small touches when he doesn't have a lot of space, but taking much bigger ones when he has space to stride into, allowing him to cover ground quickly. Even with this quality in possession though, trying to play through the middle can sometimes appear to be a dead end for Liverpool, so Slot's men have a series of little tricks to get around this problem. One is to use a player to bounce the ball into another, alleviating the need to turn out. The player bouncing the pass into the other doesn't need to be in a position to turn or progress with the ball himself, he just needs to be in a position to 1. Receive a ball from a man in possession, and 2. Play the ball into his teammate. He doesn't have to think about anything other than those two things. This allows the player receiving the bounce pass to receive the ball facing forward, rather than turning out under pressure. Another strategy when Liverpool are struggling to find gaps is to simply start the move again, passing back to the goalkeeper. If the opposition appear to settle in their shape, then a pass back to the goalkeeper can encourage them to push forward and open up space in midfield. This can also be used when the opposition are putting the Liverpool defence under pressure. Playing back to the goalkeeper evades this pressure, also including him in the build-up and allowing the defence to drop back and spread out. Another option is for Liverpool to simply play around the opposition rather than through them. We've already discussed how against certain opponents Slot had his fullbacks pull wide rather than tuck in, however it's not unusual for the midfielders to pull wide either. This gives them space or a passing angle to receive the ball, getting past the opposition's first line, and then playing back into the midfield. Alternatively, although it doesn't exactly fit Slot's ideal, Liverpool can ignore the midfield and just play directly to the forwards instead. With the wingers generally starting very wide in the build-up, right out by the touchlines, they often have space to receive the ball, with an open passing angle from the defenders. Liverpool's use of narrow fullbacks helps with this, as it draws the opposition wingers inside, away from Liverpool's.
And with them being on the inside, it also creates massive 1v1s on the sides for Lucio and for Mo.
Using the wingers wide like this can help to stretch the opposition back line. If the fullbacks don't come out to meet the Liverpool wingers, then they have space to use the ball. If the fullbacks do come out to meet the Liverpool winger, then that creates space inside for a teammate to exploit. Liverpool can also simply hit long balls over the top. Slot identified the frequency of doing this as the key difference between his style and Klopp's.
They used every moment they could to play the ball in behind or deep. That meant that the game was always also sometimes a bit open, especially in the last period of Jurgen. And sometimes I tell them, okay, get a better judgment in risk and reward. So if you can put someone in front of the goalkeeper, please try to do so. If not, it's also a good idea sometimes to keep the ball.
While Slot may aim to play less directly than Klopp, he isn't strictly dedicated to his team playing through the thirds along the ground. It isn't unusual for Liverpool to pull lots of players back as if they want to play out from the back, drawing the opposition out to press them, only to then pump the ball long to the forwards over the top. It makes quite simple sense. If opposition players are pulled forward to press, then that leaves less protection for their defence, and so the Liverpool attackers can potentially exploit this.
That means that you leave 3 defenders against 3 strikers, 3 of our attackers. And then we need to recognize those moments and then make sure that we bring those 3 players in dangerous situations. And that's then not to keep playing short. Then we have to find them with direct passes or passes in behind.
Like under Klopp, these can be played in behind, looking to put the quick attackers through on goal. But equally aimless punts can work too. Even if the opposition defenders win the initial header, with 4 players up in attack, Liverpool are often able to win the second ball in attack. Unsurprisingly, the main focus of the attack is Mohamed Salah. Probably the best player in the world, you can hardly blame Liverpool for trying to give him the ball whenever possible. Whenever Van Dijk sends the ball long, it is nearly always to the Egyptian, and when the Reds try to play the forwards in behind, it is usually him in particular they are looking to feed. With a fantastic first touch able to kill the ball dead, long balls to him have a real chance of getting Liverpool in the attack, rather than just being haphazard percentage balls. Likewise, his pace allows him to run onto passes that are nowhere near him. Once he has the ball, he will terrorise the fullback. His feet seemingly moving at double speed, he keeps the ball very close to him, taking tiny touches to slightly alter the direction of the ball and keep it away from the defender. Bigger touches come when he wants to knock it past the defender and uses pace to burst past them. What is particularly impressive is that Salah nearly always uses his left foot, meaning that he runs with the ball on the inside, closer to the defender and without part of his body in the way to protect it. This should in theory make it easier for opponents to steal the ball from him, yet they still can't. Even only using his left foot, he can still go down the outside, making space for himself by throwing his arm out as if he's going to cut inside and shoot, then continuing on when the defender falls with a feint. It is becoming rarer for Salah to beat opponents with his dribbling, but this is because they will usually back up rather than risk stepping in. It's not unusual for Salah to pick up the ball in a harmless position, then carry it into a more dangerous one, or while the defender backpedals in front of him, blocking his path but not actually doing anything to stop his advance. Defenders tend to be a bit braver when he's receiving the ball with his back to goal, but he often uses this greater aggressiveness to his advantage, drawing in their pressure, then twisting away from them, slipping out the side door. Given his goal threat, it's understandable that the opposition don't want to risk getting beaten. The Egyptian is deadly in front of goal. He can find the corners of the goal from anywhere, whether that means low powerful drives, cool placements, bending it out of the reach of the goalkeeper, or lifting it over them. Allowing him to go one-on-one with the goalkeeper is something to be avoided at all costs. Receiving it in the box, he will usually try to finish first time, giving the opposition no chance to get across. The defenders backing off like this doesn't save them though. Salah is perfectly capable of scoring from distance. However, as well as a goal scorer, he is a creator, managing 24 assists this season. Backing off simply gives him more space to pick out passes, whether that's in swingers from the flanks, out swingers with the outside of his boot, or through balls when he cuts inside. Liverpool is set up to help create this space for Salah though. With 4 men in attack and the wingers generally positioned high and wide, the Reds can really stretch the opposition's back line, especially when McAllister also pushes up to help outnumber them. Dominic Szoboszlai is more of a box-to-box player than an attacking midfielder. He does have the ability to pick out passes, however his through balls can be a little bit hit and miss. Likewise, he can receive a ball on the half turn between the lines to link play, keeping the ball close to his feet, but he's at his best when he's running forward to attack the box. It's his runs from midfield that really helps Salah. Either the defenders follow Szoboszlai's run, providing Salah with more space to take advantage of, or they leave him free, giving Salah an open player to pass to. Szoboszlai may not be the typical kind of player chosen in that number 10 role, but nevertheless he exploits any gaps the opposition defence leaves open and creates space for his teammates. This may actually suit Liverpool better given who he's usually played behind though. On paper, Diogo Jota leads the line for Liverpool, however in practice he's not exactly a traditional number 9. He's forever dropping off to link play, flicking the ball onto a teammate or turning and striding forward with it. Szoboszlai often running beyond him means Jota has space to drop off into, while the Portuguese dropping back means he isn't blocking off Szoboszlai's runs. Neither fit the typical profile of players in their positions, but they complement each other well. Jota has a scrambly kind of dribbling style that can make him look as if he's running into trouble. However, his comfort using both feet enables him to shift the ball from one foot to the other, cutting away from opponents just when it looks like they've caught him. He's capable of playing as a more traditional 9-2, placing his finishes, passing the ball into the net rather than putting his foot through it. He's also far better in the air than you would expect from someone of his height. On the left flank is Luis Diaz. The Colombian offers superb technical ability, able to control the most difficult balls with his first touch. He can then run at players, wriggling his way past defenders with his close control. He can go both inside and outside, and dribbles at such a high speed that it makes it really difficult for defenders to pin him down. He can pick up the ball out wide with a mass defence in front of him, and then a few seconds later he's wormed his way into dangerous positions in the box with the ball. Just like Salah on the opposite flank, he's the kind of player that gets you up off your seat when he has the ball. What he lacks compared to Salah as end product, his passing can often be good, zipping the ball into the feet of his teammates or giving them something to run onto over a longer distance, however not consistently so, frequently handing it over to the opposition. He's definitely improved his goal threat since joining Liverpool, striking the ball with nice clean technique and getting into the right positions to score tap-ins, although averaging a goal roughly every 3 games in his best season for Liverpool makes him a solid rather than deadly goal scorer. His worst attribute is probably his crossing. He can hit general areas, but he can't really pick out specific men, and even then they tend to be these really high balls that can't be easy for the recipient to attack. With Jota out injured for large portions of the season, Diaz found himself shifted inside into the centre. It wasn't an obvious choice, but it was a role that suited him surprisingly well. His close control is so good that even given less space he was still able to dribble, while this position also got him closer to his teammates rather than isolated on the flank, making it easier for him to find them with passes. It also put him closer to goal, making him a bigger goal threat when he runs in behind. As Diaz was moved inside, a spot opened up on the left for Cody Gakpo. Under Klopp, Gakpo was primarily used through the middle, yet he's made it clear what position he prefers.
Striker, mate. Striker.
They don't have it right, mate.
Then they watch the Euros and they say, oh no.
You think they can still change that?
No.
No, they can't.
No, for one season it's like that.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
This is because in this wide position, Gakpo isn't receiving the ball with his back to goal.
I think I come in more 1v1s now with my face towards the opponent, where I really can go inside and give a cross or shoot, or go outside and give a cross, which is more, my game, I would say, and where I think I can be really dangerous and help the team.
This allows him to get on the attack quicker, either cutting inside onto his right foot to shoot, usually low drives into the corners, or cutting inside to cross, curling the ball towards the back post. Gakpo poses a threat both scoring himself and setting up others, but he can be a little bit predictable, as 9 times out of 10 he's going to cut inside, barely ever trying to go down the outside. He lacks the athleticism of most of his attacking teammates, and so while he can use his close control to wriggle past defenders, he's not going to burst past them and try to hit the byline like Salah or Diaz can. With this in mind, Klopp using him in the centre did make sense. He's intelligent and does have the control and physicality to protect the ball and turn in the tighter gaps through the middle. His passing is also good, able to feed the ball into the other attackers running in behind. In typical Dutch fashion, Gakpo is also pretty bloody tall, and so can provide an aerial threat in the box for crosses. Gakpo can be helped in this left-sided role though, by simply having the fullback overlap down the outside. Gakpo might not have the athleticism to burst past players and hit the byline, but Robertson certainly does, and so the Scot can provide this width and get crosses into the box. This forces the opposition to take him into account, which in turn opens up more space for Gakpo cutting inside. It's another example of Slot making slight tweaks according to the situation to get the most from his players. Whichever combination of forward Slot goes with, they're all good technically, comfortable in tight spaces. This means they can work quick little passing combinations around the opposition box, creating chances even when their opponents are crowding them out, enabling them to break down the opposition when they sit back to defend. Although Slot has changed their shape, defensively his Liverpool share a quirk with his predecessors. Klopp set up his side in a 4-3-3 formation. Typically in a 4-3-3, the wingers will track back to be in line with the midfield out of possession, essentially forming a 4-5-1 shape, yet Liverpool's would instead stay high up the pitch, in line with the striker. This meant that Liverpool were using just 3 players in midfield to cover the space 5 usually would in a 4-3-3, asking a lot more defensively of those midfielders, but keeping the attackers high up the pitch meant that when they won back the ball, they could break quickly. Slot has changed Liverpool's formation to a 4-2-3-1, which would usually see the wingers drop back in line with the midfielders to form a 4-4-2 out of possession, yet like under Klopp, Liverpool's wingers instead stay high, looking more like a 4-2-4. This would appear to be even more extreme than Klopp's tactics, using just 2 men to cover the whole of the midfield when 3 was already unusually risky. In practice, it hasn't really been so. This is primarily because while Liverpool now have less cover in midfield, they have made it harder for the opposition to actually reach the midfield than before. By committing more players to the front line, Slot's Liverpool are able to do more to cut off those short passes into midfield. Previously under Klopp, Liverpool's press would see the wingers curve their runs to block the passes out to the fullbacks, encouraging their opponents to play through the middle. Slot's Liverpool can also do this, having Diaz and Salah curve their runs to block the pass wide. However, whereas Roberto Firmino was often left alone to cover the midfielders, Jota and Szoboszlai team up to block the passes through the middle too. Klopp's Liverpool would encourage the opposition to play into midfield then look to win the ball back there, whereas Slot aims to deny them the options to play out at all. Once again, Slot adapts his strategy according to the situation though. Sometimes Liverpool's wingers will curve their runs to block the passes out to the fullbacks. Other times they will remain central, blocking at the centre to stop passes through the middle, and when the opponents pass wide they will press them, aiming to trap them against the touchline. Another lopsided setup has the left winger pick up the fullback, while Salah tacks inside to press the centre back. Seeing Alexander-Arnold step up to press the left back if the ball is played out to him. A willingness to adapt enables Liverpool to adjust their press to best combat the opposition, and also makes it harder to predict for their opponents. If the opposition can't be certain how Liverpool will press, it's a lot harder to come up with strategies to play around it. With energetic, agile forwards closing them down and cutting off passing options, the opposition will often just hit the ball long, and those that don't risk losing the ball in dangerous areas. Liverpool keeping men forward like this risks leaving the midfield exposed, but it means that when they recover the ball, they have 4 men up against the opposition back line, enabling them to break forward quickly.
So if you pick the ball and you can keep Luis Diaz and Mo Salah high, then you're constantly in a 1v1 situation.
With 4 fast and technical attackers running at the opposition, Liverpool are deadly on the counter, exchanging quick passes to get in behind and punish stretched and outnumbered defences. Just as they did under Klopp, Liverpool can turn defence into attack in seconds, and a huge chunk of their goals comes from this. It makes it so that trying to attack this Liverpool side is one of the worst things you can do. That being said, while committing men forward like this does make Liverpool hard to play through, it certainly isn't impossible. Involve the goalkeeper, pull the midfielders back, and have defenders brave enough to take risks in possession, and Liverpool's press can be played through or around. Fortunately, those behind the forwards are more than capable of covering. Despite his small size, McAllister is probably the best tackler in Liverpool's squad. There tends to be more focus on his passing and technical ability, but he's much tougher than he appears at first glance. He aims to get in close and put his body into challenges, forming a solid barrier against the ball, while he also has a very good sense of timing, stepping in at just the right moment to win the ball or intercept it. Physically, Gravenberch resembles a midfield battler much more than McAllister, able to use his strength to push opponents about or keep the ball in challenges. Gravenberch's height alone allows him to extend his leg, putting a foot on the ball from range in a way that McAllister realistically can't. For the most part, this isn't Gravenberch's style though. Rather than crashing into challenges, he typically prefers to get to the ball first, stepping across to block off his opponents rather than having to fight them for it. As a result, his reading of the game becomes much more important, needing to spot runs or predict passes if he's going to collect the ball before his opponent. This can open up the game for his man when he gets it wrong, yet Gravenberch already excels for a 23-year-old, and this is an aspect that will only improve with experience. Jones is no longer the skinny attacker that emerged from the academy. 5 years of playing as a midfielder has seen him not only fill out physically, but also develop his defensive skills. Scouse is one of the best pressers in the team, reacting quickly to apply pressure when Liverpool lose the ball, and sticking tight to his man, not giving him space to play. He's also a strong tackler, unafraid to put his foot in, and displays an awareness for what's going on behind him. The back line is also strong. They maintain a high line, aiming to squeeze the opposition, but they aren't quite as obsessed at trying to catch everyone offside as they were in the second half of Klopp's tenure. There's a greater willingness to drop off and retreat to the edge of their box, slowing down their opponents, rather than insisting on holding the line near the halfway line and risking letting them through on goal. This gives the opposition time and space to run at them with the ball, but with 4 men between them and the goal, their options are limited. Now 33, Van Dijk has slightly lost a step, not quite as fast as he used to be, seeing him demoted from his unbeatable peak to merely world class. The Dutchman understands that defending isn't about winning the ball, but instead protecting the goal. His defending is primarily about putting his body between his opponent and the goal, blocking their advance, and he will alter his body shape to guide them in a certain direction. Often facing towards his own goal, he prioritises defending the space behind him, so he is particularly conscientious to the runs of attackers, tracking their movement, and will shape his body so he can come across and cover behind his teammates. With this more patient approach, he needs to be comfortable allowing players to run at him. Fortunately, despite his height and bulk, Van Dijk has exceptional footwork, allowing him to match his opponent and turn if necessary. It's very rare to see him go to ground, but he will step in to claim the ball if given the opportunity. His tackles are more about simply poking out a foot to block the ball, rather than really throwing his body into challenges though. Nevertheless, Van Dijk isn't always this passive. He will be much more aggressive when an attacker receives the ball with his back to goal, stepping up to intercept the ball or get a foot in, or at least push them around, making use of his strength, anything to stop them from turning. Van Dijk is also dominant in the air, making use of not only his strength and height, but his footwork too, adjusting his feet so that when he jumps he gets clean contact with the ball to power it away, rather than just a rough connection. He always seems to be in full control of his body despite his size. Just a centimetre shorter than Van Dijk, Konate is also dominant in the air, getting up to power away the ball. He possesses a much ganglier frame than Van Dijk though, and so doesn't appear to have that same effortless control over his body as the Dutchman. His feet can get much further apart, and so you're more likely to see stumbles when he has to change direction than from his captain. Being slightly more awkward than Van Dijk isn't really saying much though. Konate's footwork is usually excellent, taking short light steps that allow him to change direction quickly without losing his balance. It's also clear he's learned a thing or two playing next to Van Dijk. There's a focus on positioning himself to block the advances of an opponent and on defending depth, dropping off to sweep up balls in behind. This is helped by his pace, yet also requires a good reading of the game to see these passes coming, and that's something he shows frequently when covering for his teammates, spotting runs and stepping across to meet them. That being said, he's more aggressive than his centre-back partner, much more willing to throw himself into a tackle and go to ground. There are moments where he can stand to be a little more subtle. A little nudge or block can often achieve the same thing as a shove, yet are less likely to draw the referee's ire, and Konate is strong enough that he can easily bully opponents without making it quite so obvious. But we get to see how good Konate is at covering so often doesn't exactly reflect well on Alexander-Arnold though. Scouser has always had certain defensive weaknesses, doing little to get back when opponents make runs in behind him for example. However, he did used to be a solid 1v1 defender. He would get out to his man quickly to deny them time and space on the ball, and was agile enough to stay with them. As he's gradually filled out and bulked up to compete physically in the Premier League, he has lost a little bit of his quickness though, and he can appear sluggish when coming up against quick wingers, getting the ball knocked past him. The way Alexander-Arnold shapes his body doesn't help with this. He's usually in a side-on stance, but he can still be caught a little square, meaning that when his opponent goes down the outside, he has to swing his hips around to follow them. His footwork often isn't quite quick enough to match his opponent though, seeing them go past him. It shouldn't come as a surprise that he has the most success defensively when he keeps a more bladed stance, pointing his hips so that he can immediately sprint down the line and cut off his opponent's run, often slowing them down enough for a teammate to come across and double up on them. Alexander-Arnold's positioning often doesn't help him either. He frequently leaves too much space inside, and so wingers take him up on the offer, cutting in. But Alexander-Arnold doesn't square up works against him in these instances, as he has to turn 180 degrees to follow them. Although there are technical details Alexander-Arnold could work on, his biggest issue is laziness. There are moments where he simply can't be bothered to defend, instead leaving it to his teammates to pick up the slack for him. The notion that Alexander-Arnold can't defend simply isn't true. It's more that he often chooses not to.
He had to improve a bit in defending, and I've shown him that he's able to do so if he puts enough effort in. And sometimes, like the United game, which was an exception this season, it seems to lacks a bit of effort in some moments.
This laziness can also be seen in possession, and is a strong argument for why he shouldn't be played in midfield. The likes of Gravenberg and McAllister showcase how sharp you need to be to play there, whereas Alexander-Arnold can often be sloppy, too relaxed with the ball when he should be protecting it. On the opposite flank, Robertson is arguably the best left-back in Liverpool's history, the latest in a long line of Scottish greats at the club. His defending can be neatly contrasted with Alexander-Arnold's. In one-on-ones, he shapes his body to defend down the outside, pointing his hips so that he can step across and meet a winger's run. However, he also positions himself to block the path inside, not giving them space to cut into. His quick footwork allows for changes of direction to stay with and stop the opposition. He can also spot an opponent's run, dropping off to stop them getting in behind him, and this reading of a game often sees him step in to intercept opposition passes. Now 31 and with a lot of miles on the clock, there are some signs that he's beginning to slow down, getting beaten for speed, or missing challenges because he can't quite get out to them in time where previously he would. It's not as if his legs have gone, but he's been tasked with so much running over the years that it's inevitable that they will at some point, and the errors are getting more frequent. Even if the opposition can get past Liverpool's defence, they still have the considerable task of beating Alisson Becker. Arguably the best goalkeeper in the world, the Brazilian is particularly renowned for his ability in 1v1s. He had plenty of opportunities to hone these skills due to Klopp's high line, positioned high to give himself a chance to rush out and sweep up behind the defence. He still does this, always keen to come out and kill the chance before the attacker can even take a shot. But this role is a bit easier now the defensive line drops off more. When the attacker does get through on goal, Alisson will come out to close the angle, and then when the attacker goes to shoot, he will collapse his body to the side where he thinks they are shooting. As he does this, he pushes his chest out and throws his arms out to the side, trying to form as big a barrier as possible to block the ball. The collapsing leg looks to block any shots underneath him, while he also throws the other leg out to the side too, aiming to block any shots that go to the opposite side to where he's guessed. Collapsing down like this allows him to dive at the feet of the attacker and smother, but he has good judgment of when an attacker will shoot, staying standing to follow them rather than getting rounded. Alisson is also a world-class shot stopper, although his highlight reel can appear less spectacular than his peers. If you have good movement and coordination, sometimes it is not necessary to jump, he says. If I need to throw myself at the ball, I do it, but if I don't have to, I don't do it. As goalkeepers who embellish the save, I have nothing against them. Everyone needs to sell their fish. Alisson will spring into dives if he has no choice, yet if he has more time, it's likely to see him quickly shuffle his feet across rather than flying through the air. Not having to commit to such big movements to make saves lets him change direction if necessary, and this focus on footwork and positioning allows him to react quickly, ready to get down or across immediately to get a hand on the ball. The Brazilian does his best to maintain sightlines with the ball to ensure he's not caught out. Shifting his body across rather than stretching out for dives also lets him get his body behind the ball for more secure saves. It's incredible just how often Alisson is able to catch the ball rather than parrying it. This can also be seen at crosses, where he's more than willing to come out and claim the ball, preferring to get his hands around it over punching. This approach is safer for Liverpool as it denies the opposition the chance to tuck away the rebound, but also more dangerous for the opposition, as Alisson will often catch the ball, then look to play the ball direct to Salah on the counter. Many a Liverpool goal has started from Alisson at the other end. Ideally though, Liverpool will claim the ball long before it reaches Alisson. They commit a lot of players to the attacking line, meaning they will often have a lot of players ahead of the ball, yet their narrow build-up structure means that there are plenty of players nearby to quickly step in and win back the ball if they lose it. When the opposition try to sit back around their own penalty area and defend, then you will even see Liverpool centre-backs push deep into their half to box them in further, giving their teammates the support to join the attack, knowing they have cover close behind them, rather than back on the halfway line. Despite the high positioning of the attackers, there is also the expectation that they will do their bit to help out. Liverpool's players do a lot of running to track back and join in defensively. For example, Liverpool will form that 4-2-4 shape without the ball, however if the opposition manage to play past that attacking line, then both Diaz and Salah will retreat to offer defensive support to the midfielders and defenders behind them. It is this hard work that makes it safe for Liverpool to position players high up the pitch.
It's only a gamble if they play through or over that they stay where they are, but if they then sprint back, it's not a gamble.
So what happens when they can't do this? At the beginning of the season you would see players putting in a lot of hard running to get back and defend. As the season went on though, these players were starting to look more and more leggy and wouldn't track back as consistently. Their failure to track back left their teammates having to cover more ground, which in turn tired them out more, and Liverpool found themselves getting stretched much more than they had at the start of the year. This was most notable when Liverpool exited the Champions League at the hands of Paris Saint-Germain. The French champions had the confidence to pass around Liverpool's front line, and this left the Reds stretched in midfield, especially with Ousmane Dembele dropping back to outnumber them, enabling PSG to play through them. It was a working system at the start of the season, but became less viable as fatigue caught up with them. This was something Slot didn't particularly help with. He had a very clear preferred starting 11, and then also gave plenty of opportunities to Gakpo and Jones, but aside from that, he made few changes to the team. Given the running Liverpool strategy required, it was hardly a surprise that they started to fade towards the end of the season, as little was done to keep them fresh. The only other player to manage double-digit starts in the league was Kevin Kelleher. Like Alisson, he is quick to rush out and cover behind his defenders, whether that be sweeping or for a 1v1 with the attacker. He doesn't quite have that same knack for guessing when an attacker will shoot though, meaning he is often reacting to the shot rather than making preemptive adjustments. He has the reflexes to still make blocks, but they aren't quite as strong as they could be. Likewise, he is a very good shot stopper with the positioning and reactions to get a hand to the ball. However, he tends to parry it more than Alisson. The most important thing is to stop the shot, which Kelleher achieves, but Liverpool do lose certain benefits that come with their number one. A quality that Kelleher can match Alisson for is his passing, able to find teammates both over a shorter distance and a longer one. The Irishman is more than good enough to be starting for most teams, although it's fair to say he wouldn't have made as many appearances as he did if Alisson had stayed fit. Kostas Tsimikas is a solid alternative at left back. The Greek shows a willingness to step in and challenge, whether that be a tackle or an interception. He can sometimes misjudge and miss these challenges though, letting opponents past him. He's rarely beaten in one-on-ones, however he does often seem to have trouble blocking crosses or shots. In possession he's a very good crosser, able to knock it towards the back post from various different positions. He's also much more comfortable using his right foot than Robertson, making him better suited to tucking into midfield than Mascot. He can sometimes be a little sloppy with the ball though. Conor Bradley offered something different from Alexander-Arnold on the right. He is a superior defender, able to stay on top of his man when they try to beat him down the outside, and showing good judgment of when to put a foot in to win a tackle. However, he does sometimes leave a winger space to cut inside into. He possesses greater natural athleticism than Alexander-Arnold though, making it easier for him to keep pace with wingers, or to rush in and intercept a loose pass. It's this athleticism that really sets him apart, a real box-to-box player, lengthening his stride to get forward into attack, timing his runs just right to burst in behind. His crossing is probably his worst attribute, often hitting low balls that get cut out, but these runs into the final third put him in dangerous positions where he can cut the ball back instead. He's happy to make runs through the middle instead though, with both a close control and passing to threaten. This makes him well suited to slot style, given his preference for narrow fullbacks. Liverpool's longest serving player, Joe Gomez, looked destined for greatness when he broke through at centre back, yet it's never quite worked out for him. Every time he managed to get a good run of games, he ended up injured, and by the time he was back, Joel Matip had taken his place. It's not even fair to call him injury prone, as he hasn't actually picked up that many injuries. It's that those injuries have ruled him out for seasons, rather than weeks. There's no doubt that Gomez has talent. He's calm and collected, reading the game well enough to spot opposition runs and cover, while also possessing the pace to get to the ball first, or step in and intercept it. He also has nice light footwork that allows him to turn quickly. Although he is strong physically, his style doesn't depend on it, happy to let attackers come to him before putting a foot in, rather than smashing into them. He is brave though, willing to put his body on the line to make a block, and is strong in the air, getting good connections with the ball to head it away. Gomez also shows this composure in possession. He is calm under pressure, comfortable keeping the ball even with an opponent breathing down his neck, and is productive when given more space, able to pick out quality passes, or stride forward with the ball. Despite this, there is a sense that he isn't quite developed as he should have due to injury. He will make silly errors that he should have probably grown out of by now, yet worse is the sense that you can't really depend on him through no fault of his own, as there's always another lengthy spell on the sidelines around the corner. Another alternative in defence is Jarell Quansah. Like the others, he is quick and focuses on protecting the space behind him, willing to come across and cover, and confident enough in his footwork to be patient. He is more aggressive than the older centre-backs though, more willing to go to ground or put in a crunching tackle. There can be a sense that Quansah isn't always fully aware of danger. He will look calm like he thinks he has the situation under control, only for the attacker to go running past him. This can be seen when he has the ball. He's calm under pressure, capable of picking out a pass, or pushing forward with the ball. However, sometimes he can be a little too relaxed, giving the ball away sloppily. It's the kind of thing that will improve with experience, but to get that experience he needs game time, which he hasn't been getting. Harvey Elliott faces a similar predicament. He is clearly immensely talented, with a wand of a left foot to pick out passes or shots, and the close control to hold onto the ball in tight spaces. He doesn't have the pace to really play as an attacker though, lacking the explosiveness to burst past defenders. Klopp got around this by playing him in a kind of hybrid role in the midfield three, but with license to drift off to the right. Slot has just two men in midfield though, making the role more demanding. Elliott is small, not exactly fitting the profile of a typical battling midfielder, and he lacks that natural athleticism to get across and cover ground quickly. He isn't a logical fit in the midfield too. What's all the more frustrating is that there is clearly a will there. He's willing to fight and throw himself into tackles, and he works incredibly hard, doing a lot of running. He just lacks the physical gifts to really excel in Slot's system. Both big and powerful, and incredibly fast, Darwin Núñez is a very Klopp type of player, chaos at double speed. However, he wasn't an obvious fit for Klopp's Liverpool. Previously, Liverpool used Roberto Firmino in attack, having him drop off into midfield to create space for Sadio Mane and Salah to cut inside. Núñez is not that kind of player. He's not very good receiving the ball to feet, often losing it with a poor touch, and his passing is usually pretty awful. Underhit, overhit, or just plain inaccurate. He instead leads the line, running in behind the opposition back line. One issue with this is that he essentially takes the space that Salah used to attack. However, this is only a minor problem. While he rarely drops off, Núñez is happy to move wide, opening up that space through the middle for Salah. The bigger issue is that he isn't particularly good at playing as a traditional 9 either. He's very quick, meaning he should be a nightmare playing on the shoulder of the last defender, but he finds it a real struggle to stay on side, forever getting flagged. Even when he manages to stay on side, he's not a very dependable finisher. He lacks composure, hitting the ball directly at the goalkeeper most of the time, and when he doesn't, he often misses. The way he strikes the ball doesn't help with this, usually striking it with the side of his foot and often wrapping his foot around it. This isn't an explicitly wrong way to shoot. Salah often strikes the ball like this, for example, but the difference is that Salah is usually trying to bend the ball around the goalkeeper, whereas Nunez is attempting to hit straight shots. Rather than striking straight through the ball, he's often hitting it with an angled part of his foot from the side, so it's hardly a surprise it goes flying. Why exactly has Nunez remained a popular figure at Anfield then? He may not have scored as many goals as hoped, but he has certainly scored some important ones, winning Liverpool points on the way to the title. He's also exciting and direct, getting on the ball and running at speed at defenders. These runs often don't lead to anything, ending with him losing the ball or a poor pass, but he is at least forcing defenders to back up and making things happen. Most important is that he works very hard. He shows a real willingness to rush back and get involved defensively that is unusual for a striker. Arriving at Liverpool having not had a proper pre-season at Juventus, Federico Chiesa spent most of his first year on Merseyside simply trying to get fit, and so barely featured. The Italian is a dangerous attacker with a mean shot, capable of playing anywhere across the front line, yet has struggled with injuries, so we still don't really know exactly what kind of player Liverpool have got. This very clear divide in the squad between the first and second string does raise questions over what Slot thinks of them, and now he's had so much success in his first season, he should get more opportunity to mould the squad to how he wants it. Statements he's made also imply that he should feel more comfortable mixing things up the longer he works with the players.
Something's really hard because before you get one system in really well, that takes you a lot of time. So only managers that are there for a long time working with a team can play different systems.
It really highlights just how impressive his first season in charge has been. Rival supporters have been keen to downplay the quality of the side, and to a certain extent they're right. This isn't a team at its peak, they're still in development and do have certain weaknesses. This isn't the gotcha that they seem to think it is though. If his side isn't a finished article, and they're already good enough to win the league with a month to spare, then that doesn't exactly bode well for the other teams in the years to come, does it? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. This will help show my work to more people and ensure that you see future videos. You can also help me out by sharing this video with people you think would like it. You can keep up with what I'm working on by following on social media, links are in the description, but most importantly by supporting Holding Midfield on Patreon. Without financial support, these videos will simply cease to exist, as they just require too much time and effort. So if you enjoy these videos and would like to see more of them, please consider helping me out financially, and in return you'll get access to exclusive content, as well as early access to those that appear on YouTube. Thanks for watching.